Hi, Tom and Dave.
How you doing, Dana? Appreciate having me on.
Yeah, so two things. I normally don't do a live on Saturday. Saturday night I do because I do the show with Steve. And I said, but I wanted to do Dana with the Data podcast twice a week, definitely on Wednesdays and Fridays. But when Friday come, honey, I'll be using that as like my day off. And then it's like, okay, there's some content going on. So then I thought about recording today. I said, you know what? It's easier if I go live and then I could just chop it up and upload it.
I feel you.
And maybe just send this to members only and then just upload clips. So that's why we're live. But thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
All right. So the main event is the Joy Reid versus Byron Donalds over the Jim Crow comments, right? But a couple of things that I want to talk about before we get to that, and we're not going to be up here long, probably like 40-45 minutes because I have to watch Formula One qualifyings.
Okay, I didn't know you was in the car racing.
Yes, I love Formula One.
Who's your favorite driver?
Of course, Lewis Hamilton,
Okay, I feel you. All right, I feel you.
8-time world champion.
I feel you.
Um, but tell the audience who you are and where they can find you.
Okay, my name is Diamond Dave. I am Chief Content Creator, founder of the highestpaid.online option training academy. So you can find me on YouTube under Diamond Dave, also on Instagram under Diamond_Dave.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's get into the first topic, right?
Okay.
And I'll mention this to you. It's the Nipsey Hussle, right? The marathon continues with Nipsey Hussle and Earn Your Leisure partnership. Nipsey Hussle is how you pronounce this word? Pompontuously? I don't know. Paying it forward.
Posthumous.
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 Yeah.
Posthumous. It means
Posthumous.
after death.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Posthumously paying it forward through a new 100K pitch competition in partnership with Earn Your Leisure, right?
Okay.
I had sent this to you and I asked you early in the week, did you hear about this? It says Earn Your Leisure is gearing up for its third annual Invest Fest, where the inaugural Nipsey Hussle Business Grant 100K Invest Fest pitch competition will be introduced to celebrate and amplify the many entrepreneurs EYL has encountered over the years. The popular business platform has partnered with Microsoft and the marathon to award $100,000 to one exceptional entrepreneur to expand their business model. So I wanted to get your take on this.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm not going to tell any entrepreneur that $100,000 into your business is going to be a negative thing. Kind of depends on the terms. But if it's going to be like $100,000 grant for your business, kind of based on how they see the value of the pitch that you're giving them, I think it's a good deal. And I think, for whatever reason they're attaching to Nipsey Hussle, I mean, that's their deal. They do what they do on their end. But I think as an entrepreneur, if you can get somebody to kind of buy into the idea of your business or maybe what you currently have going, and they're, as a result, going to grant you $100,000, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Now it doesn't say specifically for a black person, so I guess legally you can't specify specific race base.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about that recently with what was that?
The Founders Fund?
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard about that.
That was sued and they won to where they cannot create a financial funds specifically on race because it was specifically for black women. So you can't do it for race or gender. You only could do it for circumstances. So I'm assuming that, and of course, EYL, they're about their business, right? Man, they don't want no lawsuits. So this is open to anyone, not black people, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely. I think you just got to attend InvestFest. So if you're comfortable attending InvestFest, then you're good.
right. Have you ever been to InvestFest?
Have not been. May get to it next year, but I just haven't had the chance to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it says submissions for the pitch competition will be accepted between June 3rd and August 10th, with finalists being notified via email by August 16th. Those interested in competing must be an InvestFest ticket holder and must create an Instagram video explaining their business and how the $100,000 can expand their ambitions. I mean, listen, if you're a content creator, I think this would be good as well. You
Yeah.
don't really need a brick and mortar to apply for this, but I think this is great. Um, InvestFest is like this really big financial festival, you could say, out in Atlanta that they hold just about every year.
Hmm.
And I said I wanted to go, but some people complain about it because the ticket price or whatever. Didn't you do a show on that?
No, I just said if you don't like the price, don't buy the ticket.
Okay, so you never did a show, but all right. But do you plan on going this year, or that's just
Depends. It depends. I don't. So as of right now, I don't have plans to go, but it don't mean I won't end up there.
right?
But as of right now, I haven't made concrete plans to go, but it doesn't mean I won't fall
Yeah.
through and just see what it looks like. But I just haven't gotten out there yet. But I do know some people that have gone and they really enjoyed. In fact, I knew one person that went to one of my events said he was a lifetime ticket holder.
Okay.
So I just think it depends on the person. But like to me, if you don't like ticket prices, don't go.
Right. But let me get your opinion on, when people have these organizations to where, you can apply for a grant or for finance for your business
Yes,
such
ma'am.
as this. What do you think about things like that? Is that helpful? Or, because some people like, oh, I may not get picked, and it's going to be hundreds of thousands of people applying. Like, what are your personal thoughts?
I mean, I think it's helpful if the money actually gets out to people. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's helpful because it's just like a scholarship. You can apply for a scholarship to go to school and might not get it, but you
Right.
also might get it. So if the money is actually being delivered to people, I think it's a good deal. And I don't think EYL is going to, you know, finesse people and say, hey, put all these subscriptions in and we're not going to give out the money. So if the money actually gets delivered to people, I think it's a good deal. It doesn't mean that you should get it just because you apply. Just put your name in the hat and put your best foot forward and see what happens. Because the best thing that can happen is you get 100,000. The worst thing can happen is that you just don't get it. But it's not like you are going out of your way when you got to spend 30,000 to try to get the 100,000. It's not that type of scenario.
Oh, some scenarios you might have to do that.
No, I'm just saying that's not the
Okay.
scenario. So I
Right.
mean, it's not as if you got to put out a lot to get it. All you got to do is buy a ticket to Invest Fest,
Right.
and then do your submission and tag the people on Instagram. That's not a lot of work.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. That's true.
that's not
Because
a lot of work.
sometimes they want you to present your business portfolio or
Yeah,
business plan and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, hell, I think I'm gonna do it,
that's what
and
I'm
I may
saying. You should just
end
put
up
your.
buying a ticket.
You never know. It's not a lot of work. You don't have to give them, the last 3 years of cash flows of your business. You don't have to do any of that.
Right. So
Yeah,
they're making it very easy. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna try that. So I gotta buy a ticket though. But and then I said I always want to go to Invest Fest. Um, I have people do make some good connections there, especially with the vendors and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
I heard that vendors floor is really where you do a lot of networking.
Yes.
So I heard that's really the spot where a lot of people meet people, make partnerships, things of that nature. So that's why I said is that how the internet is. People gonna look at the negative before they look at the positive. But if
Mm-hmm.
a person is going there with the intent to get something positive out of the situation, I think they will.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, honey, I'm zooming through these topics because I do want to take my time with the Joy Reid, and I
Okay.
gotta make sure I don't miss qualifying. But anyway, Diddy, the downfall of Diddy, honey. Howard University Board of Trustees have revoked Sean Diddy Combs' honorary degree, disbanded a scholarship in his name, and will return his 2016 $1 million contribution. They also terminated a 2023 pledge agreement worth $1 million that was never fulfilled, right? So I mean, it's only right. Now, when Bill Cosby was going through his thing, even though Bill Cosby's situation is nowhere near like Diddy's, um, all these universities was, taking away his honorary degrees and taking his name down and plaques down, but they never wanted to return the money.
Yeah.
And you talking about 20 million for each university he donated to, not 20 for 20 universities. No, 20 million for one university here, 10 million there, 20 here. So they ain't giving that money back. 1
Yeah.
million they could do. But what are your thoughts on Diddy, the downfall of Diddy, and Howard University revoking his honorary degree and disbanding his scholarship?
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate just the way it goes. I mean, he's kind of fallen out of favor in the
Mhm,
mainstream. So a lot of people are looking to kind of cut ties with him.
Mm-hmm.
right? So Howard University has just decided that we don't want a relationship with you, and we also don't want your money. So we'll return what we've already gotten, and we'll cancel the money that was getting ready to come in 2023. And so it is what it is. The same way you come up is the same way you go out. That's how this game is played.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to kind of know that. And I just think, unfortunately for him, he may have just got lost in the situation and didn't realize that, when I'm no longer a favorite of these type of situations, they're going to outcast me the same way they done everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that maybe they should have put the money to the $1 million donated to domestic violence organization, a homeless shelter for abused women, or women and children, or men and women. I think they should have donated that money to that, because they're saying that they disbanded the scholarship and will return his 2016 $1 million. I wouldn't return it. Um, I will. I would do something else that's more productive with it, that has to do with domestic violence.
I'm gonna say what you're saying. I mean, that may have been an option for them. It kind of depends on how the money was earmarked.
Mm-hmm.
However, they just may not want to have anything to do with him based on what has come out recently over the past, let's say, 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So they just really to move on and keep it pushing, because he didn't graduate from there anyway.
Right. And then maybe they need to stop giving away honorary degrees to just any and everybody because they write a check.
Yeah, but I mean, that comes with writing the check.
Which means all money ain't good money.
Yeah, you're right about that. But
right?
It would have been good. It would have been good money if everything wouldn't have come out.
Yeah, but apparently the money was just sitting there because they're giving it back. But but that's what I'm saying. Why is it that you pick these entertainers and put them on this pedestal, and give them honorary degrees because they're giving you money? He could have still donated that money without getting an honorary degree. You get what I'm saying?
What if do you think he asked for honorary? Do you think that might have been what he asked for?
Probably.
Okay.
And they could have been like, well, we don't do that. Or, I don't know. I just think that when it comes to whether it's abuse, domestic violence, or whatever, people just pick that one person, which is Diddy, and want to throw all the blame on him. And people don't look within themselves, especially institutions, to take accountability, because people have to understand. I wonder how many assaults and sexual assaults or harassments and domestic violence disputes that Howard University had to deal with and continue to deal with, that's not reported in the news, that they try to brush under the rug. A lot of universities and colleges deal with that.
Yeah, you're right.
So instead of just pointing a finger at him, oh, he's bad, we're going to give it back, as if you're doing something good. Well, how about you pay attention to what is happening and continue to happen on your campus that has to do with domestic violence, right? Yeah. So we're not having that. We're not having an honest conversation, and they're just using him as the poster boy for domestic violence.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how the game goes. Like the game that he's in, that's what they do. Because he was a poster boy of other stuff for a long time too. So if you're gonna be the poster boy of it going good, you also got to be willing to be the poster boy of it going bad. You understand what I'm trying to tell you?
Yeah.
So he got the game got it's two sides to the coin. So he knew what he was doing. He knew how he was living. So when you get caught up in it, it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. I want to go to the main topic.
Okay.
I did a show Thursday. You was listening to that show, and I spoke about, and I actually did a show Wednesday too. And Wednesday, Byron Donalds went viral because Hakeem Jeffries took to the Congressional House floor to accuse him of saying that Black people were better off under Jim Crow, which Congressman Byron Donalds did not say. Mm-hmm. He just said the Black family unit was more stronger back then. You saw more Black families compared to today in 2024. Okay. So that went viral since Wednesday. Is still going viral. He went on Joy Reid's show Thursday night. And so, but that was that was either when I was doing my show or after I came across that. And I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about Jim Crow and her ignorant ass comments. But before we get into that, you know what, because you sent in a super chat and you were saying that both your grandparents were married and they were
No, my
both
great grandparents.
your great grandparents. They were broke, they were poor, they weren't highly educated, but they stayed together, right? But what are your thoughts when you think of Black people, particularly Black families during the Jim Crow era?
So you say, what are my thoughts? What do you mean? Like, can you expand on what you mean?
Like, do you think that Black people had was more of a stronger unit when it comes to the family? And then also, I always got to throw in the economics part of it. You know, do you think that Black people were able? You do think that Black people had more economic empowerment during Jim Crow / segregation, as opposed to now when we look at generational wealth compared to other groups? So what are your thoughts on the Black family then compared to now, and your thoughts on the Black economics then compared to now?
I mean, so we may be able to find data that shows that more Black people were married at that time than they were now, but more people were married in general at that time than they currently were now. Right. So the question is, if we pull Black people out as a segment of the population, the question you ask when you're looking at statistics is, what are we trying to infer from the data? So we use the data to build a model. What are we trying to infer? And then if we make a correlation, what are we trying to say is the cause, or is there a correlation between the two events? So we say Jim Crow and Black people being married. Are we trying to say that there's a correlation there that's positive? So to make that, so to understand that, we got to know what correlation means. So when a politician says to where Black during this particular Jim Crow era, which is almost 100 years. So he really didn't give us a time frame, because 100 years is a long time, right? So most people, especially back then, wouldn't even live 100 years. But during this 100-year time frame, he stated that Black people there were more Black marriages, right, during that particular time frame. Okay, so he's saying that there's a positive correlation between Jim Crow and Black marriages at a certain percentage. Okay, what should we infer from that?
So he was correlating with, after the Civil Rights Movement, or after the Civil Rights Act was passed, you had all these social programs implemented, that you started to see the decline in Black families, Black marriages, and even in wealth.
No. So he didn't say, I don't know if he said wealth when I
watched. No, he
it.
didn't say wealth. I'm adding wealth, but that's what, because he was solely just talking about family. Okay, so if we say that it's true that there's a negative correlation between marriage rates and these particular social programs instituted by LB Johnson, and that let's say that is true, we find that to be true at a certain percentage, right? Then what should we infer from that? That socialism doesn't work for Black Americans, or really Americans, period. Okay, so that's your inference from that information. So that wouldn't be my inference, but that could be your inference based on that information. Go ahead.
So that's the question, is that when I say that these two particular incidents, or these two particular data points have a positive correlation, or they have a negative correlation, then the question is, based on that particular correlation, what am I supposed to infer? What is that data? What model am I supposed to be building out? What should be told from that? So, and I want to get a little bit deeper into it, because I don't want to stop here, but that was kind of what he said. The challenge is that what he never really explained what he was trying to infer from that. So then what I wasn't going to do was attack him for what he said, because I would attack him for something else, but I'm not going to attack him for that. Because he never tried to infer anything from what he said. They tried to put that on him, but he never really said that.
Did you get to hear his original comments?
I heard the original comments. I watched the interview with Joy, and I also watched the interview he did on CNN. So I watched everything.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to play this clip here. Let's see. Let me share it. And guys, please hit the like button. It's about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Could you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
Protect his wife from rape, could not protect his son from lynching. So again, Why would you quote that era and say that at that time, the family all being in the home together was something we should think of as a good thing?
Well, first of all, Joy, the story you bring up and you're bringing up is a tragedy, one of the great tragedies of the Jim Crow era. This is why those policies they were disgusting and distasteful. All I was talking about, Joy, was the benefit
of a man in the family. Again, sir, I'm sorry, I let you talk for a long time. Sorry, talk over you. You've gotten a chance to speak a lot, Congressman. You're going to answer my question now and not filibuster. This is the question you want. This is the question you need to answer.
That's what I'm trying to answer. That's what I'm trying to answer, Joy.
Give me a second. Take a breath. Take a breath. If a black man could not protect. It's my show. If a black man, a black father, could not protect his wife, his son, or himself from lynching and violence, how is him being in the home mean that is an era that was better for the black family, or that we should think of as a good thing?
First of all, Joy, I never said that it was better for black people in Jim Crow. I have never said that. And even my own words say that. If you're talking about the importance of black fathers in the home, or frankly, all fathers in the home, it is always for the betterment of children, to have leadership, yes, for safety. So having two people in the home to help provide the economic needs for those children so the family can succeed. That is a wonderful thing. We should always get back to that, not to Jim Crow. And this is the point of the gaslighting and the lying that is occurring with what I said. Don't try to impose the fact that the marriage rates were better in the higher, I want to be clear, higher in the Jim Crow era to mean that I think Jim Crow is great. That is a lie. That is gaslighting. I would never say such a thing, which is why the Jim Crow era was destructive of black people.
You brought it up. You're the one who brought it up.
Let's get one more question. And now you're trying to gaslight like everybody else is trying to gaslight.
The timeline was when, okay, one more thing. The poverty rate during Jim Crow was 55.1%. More than half of families were impoverished. You also said, and I'm quoting you again, during Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative minded, but black people voted conservatively. Black people weren't allowed to vote at all during Jim Crow.
Well, first of all, there were areas in the United States where black people did vote.
It wasn't
universal throughout the United States. So let's just be perfectly honest about that. I just told you it was not universal.
We know Jim Crow wasn't
There were areas, but obviously black people were suppressed from voting. That's what the purpose of not just the 64 and the 65 voting rights back, but so many others. But let's get back to what I was saying.
So you're inaccurate.
All I was talking about is about black families. No, I'm not being inaccurate.
During Jim Crow, more black people voted conservative. They didn't vote conservative because they weren't allowed to vote. That is the essence of what Jim Crow is.
So again, Joy, I'm gonna come back to my original point. It is talking about the family unit, having more fathers in the home, which creates better people going forward.
Last question, and then I'm going to let you go. Last question. We're out of time, but I'm going to give you one more question. During Jim Crow, could your family have existed? You are in an interracial marriage. Your wife is a white conservative activist. Could your family have existed at all during Jim Crow?
Okay, so that was the end of that. She's so disrespectful. First of all, she was inaccurate when it came to the voting. Black people were allowed to vote. But if you lived in a certain state or city, particularly in the South, you would have to pay voting poll taxes. You had to take some type of literacy test, or they will prohibit you from voting by other ways. But in the North, in certain states in the North, you can vote. I remember Condoleezza Rice, who was former Secretary of State. She said that when her father, and she grew up in Alabama, went to, I guess, City Hall to register to vote, and a white lady who was there was like, well, I will submit your papers so you can have your voter registration if you check off Republican. And he did, and he stayed a Republican ever since, and she was a Republican or whatever. So Joy is incorrect. And then she goes on, and I don't know, I don't think did she reference in this clip? I think that was the beginning part that was cut off, saying that Black men could not protect their families during Jim Crow. And that's highly inaccurate and offensive. But I want to get your thoughts on that as well.
Okay, so listen to it because I watched the whole interview. I think this is the back half of it. I also watched the first half. So my biggest challenge is this, and I don't know how much time we got left. The first challenge is that they have two people talking about Jim Crow, and their families never experienced Jim Crow. So from my understanding, Reid is from Africa, people from like the Congo or something. Mr. Donald is the descendant or the child of two Jamaican immigrants. So he's from New York City, went to FAMU, and then he represents, I think, District 19 in Florida, which is around the Cape Cod area. Okay, so during Jim Crow, his family was still in Jamaica. So this is why when you ask him questions about Jim Crow, even though a lot of Black Americans don't have that history, I don't expect him to have the history because it didn't involve his family. His family was in Jamaica during this particular time. So I don't know when his family came over, but I would assume it was probably sometime maybe in the 70s or the 80s, right? When they finally came over, it could have been later. So when this was going on inside the United States, right, pre-1960s, his family was still in Jamaica or wherever they were at, right? So he doesn't really understand that institution because it didn't involve his family, right? I don't agree with you, and I'm not trying to be disagreeable, that Black people could vote during Jim Crow. So I'm from Orlando, Florida area. There's something called the Ocoee race riots. They started because some Black men from Ocoee went to Orlando to register to vote, started a race riot. And for probably the next 25, 30 years, there were no Black people living in Ocoee because essentially they killed every Black person in Ocoee, right? Fannie Lou Hamer was assaulted in jail by police officers in Mississippi because she tried to register to vote, not even vote. So the issue of Black people voting in the South, which has always had the majority of Black people inside the United States, was an issue of discrimination against Black people, not just through poll taxes and literary tests. You weren't even allowed to register to vote. And most people, if they were given the test to vote, they wouldn't pass the test. And I'm not talking about back then, I'm talking about now, right? So the goal was to obstruct Black people from being involved in the political process. But you have to kind of know the history. I'm not talking about you personally, but a person has to know the history of Jim Crow to understand that. So Miss Reid may not know it, but neither does he. So that's why he brought it up.
Well, yeah, and she did mention that in another video. Well, he's from, he's not, his ancestors or his parents were from another country, just like mine. You can still know the history if you read the history, if you research it. And you're frozen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. I don't know what happened. He froze up. Okay. He said his internet went out. Okay. He's coming back up. Yeah. His internet went out, but he's coming back up. Let me make sure. Let me see what point is this.
Brought up Jim Crow. It was you. You brought up Jim Crow. So why did you use Jim Crow specifically?
Yeah, but if you're going to use the chronological timeline of America before the Great Society,
you did that. No, the media or
really unfortunate.
So here's the challenge, Congressman. You started out talking about your family.
And twisting.
All right, just give him a second, because he did say his Wi-Fi went down. 1 second, guys. So I want to wait for him to come back. And like I said, this This video will be going most likely to members only. And then I'm gonna chop it up and just upload clips. Yeah. PJ, this is not a rerun. This is actually live. I'm live. I'm just waiting for Diamond Dave to come back. Here you go.
Yes,
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that, Dana.
No, it's no problem. I was like, I thought it was me because I've been.
No, it was me. Yeah, my internet went out. My fault.
You ain't pay your bill, honey.
Yeah, I paid it.
Wait, do you have Verizon?
No, I have what is it? Xfinity.
Oh, Xfinity. Okay. Now I know Verizon was having issues this week. All right. So, what was we saying?
So I was saying that you was responding back to it. The fact that I don't think he's qualified to talk about Jim Crow because it's not something that his family has dealt with, like historically.
Right. Well, and I was saying, if you do your research and know your history, whether you were born here or not, you can understand and know the history of Jim Crow. So I'm not using that against him that his parents came here from Jamaica, because we learn about the Vikings, you know what I'm saying? And I probably know my European history better than a European person, you know, or whoever had Roman background ancestors. So if you do the research and educate yourself on something, you could speak to it.
Yeah, but he hasn't done the research.
I think he has, because
no, ma'am.
To where I may disagree with you, because I did say when it came to the voting that there were places where they prohibit you. You did have the right to do it, but depending on the state and depending on your city, they will make it hard or outright prevent you from doing it. So you gave an example of that city in Florida. But if I go to, let's say, New York City, you see what I'm saying? Or let's just go with Chicago, to where they would say, well, you can register to vote, but you got to vote Democrat, you know, or you got to be a Republican. There were all types of stipulations. You didn't have really, depending on where you were at, the freedom to choose what party or what person. If Fannie Lou Hamer, did I say her name right?
Yeah, Fannie Lou Hamer.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm getting it mixed up with somehow. They were registering Black people to vote because a lot of people weren't registered, and they wanted to create a party. It's like an offset part of a Democrat party, their own political party. It wasn't so much pushing people the right to vote, but they wanted to be included within the political process. So we just gonna have to disagree on that. And maybe, you know what, I'll do a separate show on that, because you were able to vote, but the difficulty of you actually registering and voting depended on the city and state you were living in during Jim Crow.
Okay. And so, and also what Joe Reid talked about is that we talked about the actual economic data. I mean, you can't argue the economic data unless you have some other data to bring to the table. So we talked about the poverty rate for Black people during this particular time period.
Yeah.
It was very stark.
Yes.
So the attitude, the idea that because Black people were married, there was some type of economic acceleration because of that is false. There's no data to support it. Dr. Claude Anderson has done done decades of trying to educate Black people on this particular topic. So again, he hasn't done the research. It shows in the way in which he communicates what he knows about it. So it may not be correlated to the fact that his people came from Jamaica, but it does show that he hasn't really done the research on the topic.
Well, I think he was not trying to educate people on Jim Crow and what was going on, because that's why he specifically highlighted to marriage. When you have the father in the home, whether you're poor or not, you know, what race you are, when the father is in the home, it makes a difference raising a family and protecting your family. And that, and economics aside, and I think that's what he was really trying to highlight. So basically what he was saying, during Jim Crow, which was not a good time for Black people, the families were still together.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
As opposed to now, with all of these freedoms that we have now, the family is falling apart. That is observational data and actual numbers data.
Okay. So let me ask you a question.
Premise.
why wouldn't he just say between 1865 and 1965 instead of saying Jim Crow, which is a very specific set of regulations that impacted people differently based on what part of the country that they came from. Him being from New York City and his family being from New York City, they may not experience it the same way that somebody in Florida or Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi or South Carolina may experience it. You know, Ali not being able to vote in Kentucky, but being drafted, right? So you got to understand is that he could have got his point across. Like I said, again, it speaks to the fact that he doesn't really know what he's talking about in this situation by just giving a time period. Between this time period, I believe that things were better for Black people because their families were intact.
Yeah, well,
and then you don't have to reference Jim Crow at all.
Right, but he didn't say things were better. He was talking about the marriage rate, and Jim Crow.
Okay, he could say the marriage rate was higher. Yeah, so between this time period, the marriage rate was higher. He could have just said that.
Jim Crow came into effect after Reconstruction, but so Jim Crow is Jim Crow. So you could within that decade, within that 100 years, when you look at the rate of marriage, it was still above 50%. But as soon as we have all these freedoms and legislation and public policies in our favor, you know, to give us more freedom, you see the decline in the marriage. He was only talking about marriage, i.e. the family. This bitch here throws in, well, Black man couldn't protect the family, and that was a hard time for Black people. Black people were poor, Black people couldn't vote. And her data was inaccurate. And a lot of times when you are at these, because he was at some Philadelphia function.
Yeah.
And then, or if you're on TV, a lot of it is soundbite and it's condensed. So you're going to say Jim Crow instead of giving a dissertation saying, well, between this year and that year and this circumstance and that circumstance, you just say Jim Crow. Now, if you want to,
but you don't, there's no reason to say Jim Crow though. So what I'm saying is that he doesn't know enough about that time period, in my opinion, based on everything that he said since he's been interviewed, to even speak on the time period.
He doesn't know enough?
Because when people ask him about the time period, he's not able to communicate that he knows anything about it.
Who asked him about the time period?
I said I saw this whole interview. I also saw the interview on CNN. Right. And so when speaking to him about this time period, he's not able to communicate that he even understands anything about the time period. He just hasn't been educated on it.
Let me play this part.
Okay.
My words saying I was being nostalgic. When you're raising families, raising kids, etc., you're now thinking about all of the public policy issues, all of the economic issues, all of the education issues. And that's leading people to have divergence in political thoughts. That was the only point. The stuff that comes up about Jim Crow and twisting my words, saying I was being nostalgic or saying that Jim Crow was good for Black people, that's all political spin. It's a lie. It's gaslighting. And that's truly unfortunate.
So here's the challenge, Congressman. You started out talking about your family, talking about your mom, talking about being raised, and you on your own brought up Jim Crow. In fact, you said Jim Crow 3 times for emphasis. It wasn't the media or the Democrats or gaslighters who brought up Jim Crow. It was you. You brought up Jim Crow. So why did you use Jim Crow specifically as your reference? You did that. No one else did that. You did it.
Oh, I did. We were having a conversation, just talking as, you know, Black people in Philadelphia. But if you're going to use the chronological timeline of America before the Great Society and Lyndon Johnson's time period, you had, unfortunately, the Jim Crow era in America. During that time period, the marriage rates of Black Americans was significantly higher than any other time since then in American history. So it is a divergence if you're talking about marriage rates in the Black community. They have plummeted. And what we've seen recently in America, which is a very good thing we should all celebrate, is that the marriage rates in the Black community are rising again. That's good for Black families. That's definitely good for Black children. It's something I want to see. I'm quite sure you want to see it as well.
Okay, let's talk about that. Jim Crow lasted roughly from 1867 after the Civil War to 1968. Is there a specific period between 1867 and 1968 that you thought?
I had to pause her right there because she's wrong. Jim Crow did not start in 1867. So what the fuck is she talking about? Dave?
I never defended Joe Reid. I'm talking about him. So I said we have two people who don't have an understanding of Jim Crow talking about Jim Crow because they don't have anybody in their family that went through it, and on top of that, they haven't been educated on it. So well, you're not gonna get me to defend Joy Reid because I told you from the gate, both of them don't need to be talking about it.
Right. But my thing is, there are a lot of people who are from this lineage here and don't know about Jim Crow.
Exactly. But we in this specific situation, we have two people where during Jim Crow, their family was on the other side of the world. And on top of that, they have not been educated on the topic. So they both gonna be wrong.
All right, so let me start finish playing it up.
Was this golden era for Black families, or a time that was good for Black families?
Joy, I never said that. And see, this is where the gaslighting comes in.
I'm going to read what you said.
All I was talking about was the marriage rates.
Stop. No,
Joy,
that's not what you said. Let's play what you said. Play what he said. Play what he said.
Families. You're saying I said it was the golden era.
I'm going to play. I'm going to play what you said.
I said that it was better for Black families. I never said that.
Play what he said.
Play what I said.
Play what he said.
Let's wait for the commercial.
Yeah, I feel you.
During Jim Crow, the Black family was together. That's right. During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative-minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are.
Okay, so now I'm going to go back. You said during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. What was the authority of the Black father in the Black family during Jim Crow?
Well, listen, under Jim Crow, obviously, Black people were under great persecution, unfortunately, by Southern Democrats and the Democrat Party overall in the history of our country. That's the fact. And so, well, let me finish now, Joy. And so having the Black man in the home was about first protecting the mom and protecting the kids. Incredibly important. It was the leadership in the home, which is incredibly valuable. And I think what we're witnessing, obviously, the last 30 years, definitely through my generation, is Black fathers being at home is incredibly important for the success of Black children going forward. And it's not just a Black thing, that's everybody. Fathers in home help to breed success for kids moving forward. That is a great thing for our country. That's something that has been proven throughout time. So what I'm talking about is not the golden era of Jim Crow. That's ridiculous. I would never say that. And that is the gaslighting that I'm standing up to, because that's what Hakeem Jeffries, the Biden campaign, Jamie Harrison, and the like are trying to bring up. And unfortunately, the media has followed suit with misleading headlines, and that's wrong.
Now I'm going to talk. Do I have a chance? Good. Now, you talked about the Black father being in the family, being able to protect the family. First, I want to read, just for our audience, the definition of Jim Crow, just so we all know what we're talking about. Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation. They existed essentially from the post-Civil War era. They were meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, and other opportunities. Those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws often faced arrest, fines, jail sentences, violence, and death. Now I want to talk about something that happened during this era. You said that what you were talking about was the presence of the Black father in the home to protect his wife and family. In 1943, in the state that you represent, in Florida, a young man named Willie James Howard, who was 15 years old, was lynched. During Christmas of 1943, Willie Howard sent cards to all of his coworkers at the Van Priest dime store in Live Oak, Florida. Unlike the other cards, Willie's card to Cynthia Goff, a white store employee, revealed a youthful crush. His greeting expressed hope that white people would someday like Black people, and concluded, "I love your name, I love your voice. For SH, sweetheart, you are my choice." After reading the card, Cynthia's father, Phil Goff, brought two friends to the Howard home and demanded to see Willie. Despite his mother's pleading, the men dragged Willie away and then kidnapped Willie's father, James Howard, from work. The men drove the two Howards, to the embankment of the Suwannee River, bound Willie's hands and feet, stood him at the edge of the water, and told him to either jump or be shot. Willie jumped into the cold water below and drowned while his father was forced to watch at gunpoint. Willie's dead body was pulled from the river the next day. You said that the that during the Jim Crow era, the importance of having a Black man in the home was to protect his family and to protect his wife. I actually spoke with somebody who lived through Jim Crow. Her name is Merle Evers Williams. And Merle quoted to me a man named Charles Silverman, who wrote in Crisis in Black and White, that in 1890, the year that the Mississippi Constitution was written, the policy of crushing out the manhood of the Negro citizens was to be carried out with success. So the man in the home during Jim Crow had no rights, could not protect his wife from rape, could not protect his son from lynching. So again, why would you quote that era and say that at that time, the family all being in the home together was something we should think of as a good thing?
Well, first of all, Joy, the story you bring up and you're bringing up is a tragedy, one of the great tragedies of the Jim Crow era. This is why those policies were so they were disgusting and distasteful. All I was talking about, Joy, was the benefit of a man in the
family. Again, sir, I'm sorry, I let you talk for a long time. Sorry, no. Talk over you. You've gotten a chance to speak a lot, Congressman. You're going to answer my question now and not filibuster. This is the question you want. This is the question you need to answer.
That's what I'm trying to answer. That's what I'm trying to answer, Joy.
Give me a second. Take a breath. Take a breath. If a Black man could not protect, it's my show. If a Black man, a Black father, could not protect his wife, his son, or himself from lynching and violence, how is him being in the home mean that that is an era that was better for the Black family, or that we should think of as a good thing?
First of all, Joy, I never said that it was better for Black people in Jim Crow. I have never said that, and even my own words say that. If you're talking about the importance of Black fathers in the home, or frankly, all fathers in the home, it is always for the betterment of children, to have leadership, yes, for safety. So having two people in the home to help provide the economic needs for those children so the family can succeed. That is a wonderful thing. We should always get back to that, not to Jim Crow. And this is the point of the gaslighting and the lying that is occurring with what I said. Don't try to impose the fact that the marriage rates were better in the higher, I want to be clear, higher in the Jim Crow era to mean that I think Jim Crow is great. That is a lie. That is gaslighting. I would never say such a thing, which is why the Jim Crow era was destructive of Black people.
You brought it up. You're the one who brought it up.
You muted.
Yeah. So the part that she said, how can a Black father, how can a Black man protect his family during Jim Crow? Like, I can't. This is why I don't like her, because the stupidity. Now, I get your point to where you're saying both of them don't know. Honestly, they're talking in sound bites. She more so talking in ignorance of sound bites. He was just talking in sound bites when he was at that Philadelphia event. And he was only talking about Black family. He wasn't talking about voting. He wasn't talking about the economics of Black people, just the presence of a father. And this chick goes the only time she actually commented on his point he was making as far as Black family was, how could the Black father protect his family during Jim Crow when there was a whole bunch of lynching? Like, Black fathers couldn't. I have a problem with that. Go ahead, Dave.
I mean, I'm saying you got a problem with that, but the issue is that he put himself in that situation with what came out of his mouth, right? Byron is from a district in Florida. It's majority white. So it doesn't matter what he says about Black people, because he needs white people to vote for him to stay in position. So it really doesn't matter. This is the most attention he's probably got on the political circuit in the past 3 to 4 years. We can't speak to any important legislation that he's sponsored and gotten through the House, right, or the Senate, or wherever he attends. So this is the most attention that he's gotten. So he's going to soak up this attention. He's trying to raise his profile. We know that Trump's on his election run. He wants to be attached to that campaign. So he's going to do what he's going to do. But he never should have spoke about that, because he doesn't know enough to talk about it. So he could have made that point by not talking about other things. And again, I'm going to ask you what we talked about before. If he's going to make these two correlations, right? Because just because something is correlated doesn't mean it's caused, right? So he never said that, well, based on these particular correlations, I'm inferring this. So that's why I'm not going to put that on him, like what Ms. Reid's trying to do. What I'm saying from the gate is that he doesn't know enough about this particular time period to even use it as a reference point to make any point. He should just give a date between this date and this date. Black people are married at a higher rate. But what he's trying to do is connect it to social policy. But again, there was a higher marriage rate across the board, regardless of race or ethnicity during those particular years.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting that he tries to pull black people out and say Jim Crow, but I could also say white people were married at higher rates in that particular period. And then now after Lyndon Johnson's social policy, they're also now have a lower marriage rate than before this particular time period. Then what would I blame it on? I can't blame it on Jim Crow. Or I can't say Jim Crow was the reason why they were married at a higher rate. So I can't say white people between 1900 and 1965 had a higher marriage rate, right? Because of Jim Crow. I can't say that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that a black person should be able to speak on blackness if they're married to a white person?
I mean, it's not that he can't speak on it. My question is, what are you actually talking about? Do you know what you're talking about?
Okay.
So one of the issues with him and also with the guy that was also there, they're both married to white women. That doesn't invalidate them. What invalidates them is they don't know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right? Because this guy doesn't, his family life is not black. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it is what it is. Doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just what it is.
Oh, honey, we're doing perfect on time. I have 2 more questions, but I'm going to save it because we're going to be doing more content together.
Okay.
In July. That's what we talked about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out whether it's pre-recorded or live, it don't matter. So these questions, why do black men relate to Trump? Is Trump pandering to black people, particularly black men?
Who says black men relate to Trump? I'm black. Who says that?
50 Cent said it.
Okay, so 50 Cent speak for me?
So because 50 Cent said, well, they relate to him because of RICO charges. Remember he said that?
I remember he said that. What I'm saying is that, okay, so 50 Cent says Michael Jordan's the worst basketball player in the world. That means it's true?
So, but do you think in general, aside from you, do you think in general, black men can relate more to Trump than Biden?
The black people I know can't relate to either one of them.
Really?
Yeah, who are they?
So should we? I think that's a good topic to discuss.
I mean, neither one of those dudes remind me of the men in my family.
Is Trump pandering to black people, particularly black men?
I don't know, because like I said, I can't relate to him. So I'm not for him or against him, but Trump and Biden don't. I was raised by black men, so I can't relate. How do I relate to him?
Politically, when it comes to voting in the White House, when it comes to executive orders, and so that's what I mean. So do you think that black men will gravitate and appreciate executive orders, public policies put forth by Trump versus Biden? Who policies benefit black men better, Trump or Biden?
We got to put the policy on the table. Show me the policy.
Well, the policy when Trump was in office, he did the First Step Act. And of course, when we look at our investments and stuff like that, business wise, a lot of people did see more money increase. And you look for Biden,
Trump don't control the stock market. You're talking to somebody that's in the markets every day. They don't have anything to do with the president.
He don't control the stock markets, but when internationally, when we talk about internationally dealing with leaders, whether it's China, Russia, or other countries or whatever, billions of dollars are being spent or sent overseas under Biden as opposed to Trump. My groceries were steady, were not increasing dramatically under Trump, nor was my rent due to, COVID. And I do blame Democrats for that. But gas was regulated. So, but just on policies from what executive orders that a president can do, I feel as though that Trump has, in his own way, had developed or signed off on policies that would benefit particularly black men. And that First Step Act was a major policy that he enacted.
What's the First Step Act?
I think that was the first step when the guys that was locked up for non-violent offenders, like if you remember, they was locked up for like one filed crack and got 20 years or something. So that First Step Act allowed them to be able to get parole or get out of prison or whatever.
Does anybody have any numbers on how many people actually came home because of that act?
It is numbers out there. I don't have them right now. And that's what I'm saying. I do want to save those 2 questions for an actual show. So that way I can have the numbers and the accurate information on the policies.
Okay.
So when I say relating better, I'm only talking about from policies, right? But a lot of these politicians, you know, they do try to relate just like celebrities do with the pandering. So and then a lot of people fall for it, black or white, it doesn't matter. A lot of people fall for the pandering. So, you know, that's why I was asking those questions, but I think that's a good topic to discuss, right?
Okay.
You a little stern today.
No, I'm not stern. It's just
today. You like, I don't relate to neither one of them. Who you voting?
I don't relate to neither.
Like for Dave, who you voting for?
Me.
You're not voting in this election?
I didn't say I wouldn't vote. I said I'm voting for me.
Okay, so who are you going to vote for, Trump or Biden? Because those are the 2 choices.
Well, I don't put my political moves in the public because they're private, but I'm voting for me on every election. So I'm my number 1 fan. I'm always voting for me.
But you do focus on the local elections, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
That's right. You in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm in the metro.
Are you a registered Democrat or Republican?
I'm not registered either one. I don't know if you follow my channel. I don't do political football.
No, so you're not registered as
I'm registered as a Buccaneer.
As a regular person, you're registered as a non-affiliate to any political.
No, I'm registered as a Buccaneer.
What's a Buccaneer?
That's my political party.
You wrote it in. I don't get it. That's
I'm registered as a Buccaneer. That's my political party.
That's actually
it's actually a political party. It existed before all these other political parties. We was around in the 1400s.
And you can they have that where you could check that off to be registered as a Buccaneer?
Yeah, you can register as a Buccaneer. I don't need them to check it off for me to be a Buccaneer. Like I said, this existed before any of these political parties.
When it comes to the primaries, you can't vote in the primaries.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Yes.
No. Yes, you can.
Yeah, I can do it. Yes, I'm a registered voter.
No. But you have to be registered Democrat or Republican to vote in the primaries.
Okay.
So you don't vote in the primaries.
I didn't say that.
Killing me here, Dave, honey.
What I'm saying is that the way y'all say things, will got to be either slot A or slot B.
And
if it's not slot A or slot B, it don't work.
I totally get where you're coming from.
That's what worked for y'all.
Right. But the reality is, it's basic. The majority, and that how it always been for centuries, is Republican Democrat.
I understand.
Sprinkle in the independent.
I feel you. How that's working for y'all?
How is
I'm not talking about you personally. I'm just saying how that's working for y'all.
It is a circus, but and then what confuses me is when you talk about the primaries. If you are a registered Democrat, you can only vote in the Democratic primaries. If you're a Republican, you only vote in the Republican primaries. So, or if you're an independent, you can't vote in a Democrat or a Republican primaries. And 99.9% of the time in the primaries are only those 2 main candidates, Republican, Democrat. Because independents, Green Party, whatever, they don't ever win anything.
Yeah, that's why local voting is more important than national voting. Even though the national voting gets all the attention, that's really not where you're going to have any impact.
Right.
Because of the way in which they set up the political system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the political system is still set up to be rigged on a local level too, but it is rigged.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it is on a national level because all the money flows to the national level. That's why they get all the attention.
Yes. But and then too, people ignore the local levels. I think majority of people don't even pay attention to local. They pay attention to the national.
Most local voting is on the 10%.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's on the 10%. But what people don't understand, and I don't want to sidetrack because I know you got to get to the race. It doesn't matter what political party you are a member of if you can appoint your own politicians. But that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
So if you can produce your own politicians, it doesn't matter what political party, because you were just talking about Trump. Trump voted Democrat in a lot of different elections. He's running now as a Republican.
Yeah, but
so that's gonna go over a lot of people's heads.
Right. So
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The 2 questions that I asked, the last 2, that could be for another show.
But see, Trump's a member of Make America Great Again party. He's not a Republican nor a Democrat.
Right. And that's not an official party yet.
It
but
don't have to be.
But it's
going to be. It's going to be. So that's what I said. A lot of people is caught up in these parties. That's why they're in the situation that they're in, instead of trying to push their agenda.
Yes. All right. Well, I don't like when we disagree.
I mean, things gonna happen. We're not gonna always agree, but as long as we keep respectful, we cool.
I'm trying to find a race.
I feel you. I understand where you're coming from.
All right, listen, Diamond Dave. Listen, we're gonna be doing more content, honey, because this election summer is hot. Yeah. Tell people where they could get in contact with you.
YouTube, I think it's Diamond Dave.
At Diamond Dave.
At Diamond Dave. Diamond Dave 1, I believe, is the actual tag.
Yes. And Diamond Dave, he is no nonsense, honey. No nonsense. He about that business. So, and we're going to talk more about the business when we do the content in July. But thank you so much.
Appreciate you having me.
Wait a minute. Let me get to, I'm sorry, the super chats. Notice how she keeps saying if a black man could not protect over and over again. They love to do that. And she's not even ADOS. I agree, One Titans. I thought he was highlighting effects of children in the home, and he explained it as a period before the welfare started and drove men out of the home. Honey, you must be driving in Texas, but thank you. But we get the point. Yeah, that he was kind of talking to that. Courtney Smith, Joe Biden almost all the time brings up Jim Crow when he addresses black audience in his speech, and he never gets this kind of pushback from Joy and the rest of the liberal black media. Exactly.
That's a fact.
Diamond Dave messing up the show.
I feel you.
Diamond don't care, honey. All right. Thank you so much, Diamond Dave. And you're doing a show this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to put that in my community so I can send people over there, because you do great lives, very informative. So go check Diamond Dave out at Diamond Dave on YouTube. And I'll see y'all guys.
Appreciate it. Y'all take it easy.